Hello, good morning, and welcome back to Reaper Pro Tips, episode 501. Now I know what episode we're on. Now I can be like other Twitch streamers and podcasters and all the rest of it saying, it's episode blah, blah, blah. Yeah, right, that'll get old fast. Hi, everybody. Good morning. Do. No Shadow Raven today, bummer. Well, we'll muddle on somehow without you, Shadow Raven. Somehow. I don't know how. But yes, happy 501. Yes. Quitty's like, awesome, I don't have to count anymore. Thank you all for showing up yesterday. It was super fun. And slowly we get more progress on the dragon, right? Hello, Bob and Julie. Good morning and good morning. Of course, we have summoned Julie and Bob because, you know, Julie's kitty folk that we're working on, and we're about to start the metals. I base coated the metals before, so I've got my formula here. I probably need to dig those colors out so that I can have them on hand, although I know that one of them is in the other room. So right away, I've screwed myself up. I'm back. Alrighty. Carbon gray. I was working on an NMM handout for my classes this weekend and totally stole this color and put it in the other room. We did use it to create a cold shadow using its other paint in its triad Moon, i.e. Moonstone Blue. I call it Moon. It's my fond meme name for it. Oh, you got your gift certificate today. Very good. Well, I would say, since it's Special Babble, if there's a big model or set that you've been wanting to pick up, you could use it toward that, so you're getting a discount. That's what I tend to do with such windfalls, but, you know, to each their own. Spend it on whatever will make you happy, dude. Right? It's a pretty good Happy Tuesday. I mean, we're headed for, in the States anyway, we're headed for the Memorial Day weekend, which usually is a 3 or 4 day weekend for people, depending on if they choose to take the previous Friday off. I, of course, have a convention, so I am taking this Friday off and a Memorial Day, so I will not be here Friday and Monday. Yay, 4 day weekend, although I will be working for some of that because I'll be at a convention, so, you know. Yeah, I sometimes have trouble like rationalizing buying a big or expensive mini Babble, but if I have like a gift card or something, then I can rationalize it a lot easier. I'm like, I'm getting a discount. Hello, Returnip. How's it going? I am mixing up I'm gonna actually mix up my base in here. So that's 5 drops of Moon, i.e. Moonstone Blue, and then we are putting in 1 drop of its Triad Mate Carbon Gray. So people spotted really early when this triad came out that it was excellent for NMM steel. So that's why I decided to go this way instead of with my usual recipe, which involves cloudy gray plus ashen blue. I still have a Dick Blick gift certificate sitting in my email somewhere. I was kind of holding off until I really needed some retail therapy, because Dick Blick is expensive. But now with the oil paints, I'm like thinking, now it might be time to blow the rest of that gift certificate on things and stuff, you know, like you do. Alrighty. Gonna have my base coat. I'm gonna use carbon now to do shadows on NMM steel. You have to go almost to black or to black, and that's really difficult doing the black to white blend. It's the most difficult part of NMM steel. So what I often will do to kind of be cheaty about it is I use gray liner, because gray liner is more translucent. However, I don't think I've actually got it in my box. I think I moved it. But gray liner is more translucent, and it's going to make it a little bit easier for you to thin it down and get like that dark shadow. Make it blend in a little bit better, because pure black has such strong, like it's so high coverage that you have to thin it to within an inch of its life, and even then you might not get a good blend on it. So yes, that's a thing. So yeah, I am good heading into the holiday weekend. I have ribs in the fridge to make at some point over that weekend, maybe Friday. I like to make ribs when I have like time off, because they can take a while. Even though most of it is just them sitting in the oven kind of staring at you going, am I done yet? I still don't like to do that during the work week. Yeah, hooray holiday, exactly. All right, so I'm going to use 4 drops of carbon gray. I'm going to start out, I'm going to do a 1-to-1 probably with that. And I'm going to mix up my base coat, and then I'm going to use my base coat to mix up a first highlight color. I'm actually going to do this NMM kind of in line with the way I'm planning to be teaching it over the weekend. So maybe a little bit different than usual. I need mixing brush. There we are. Mixing brush. So we're mixing our moonstone and our carbon gray together, and we end up getting a cold gray. That reminds me very much of the old Cold Stone Gray Triad, which was a gray set with definitely a blue shift. Now the color looks darker on the palette than it does on the model, because we're going over white primer, and white primer will definitely cause certain colors to look lighter. This is actually when you're using the fair skin triad and stuff like that, and it comes out so pale. That's part of the reason why right there, is if you're going over white primer, that's why you're getting such a pale skin tone. That's why I tend to start with a darker skin tone for fair skin, since I almost always am going over white primer these days, or over zenith with a white undercoat on the face. So either way, same thing. And let's build a highlight. Oh no, it can't be June yet, because my birthday is coming up in June, and I don't want it to be my birthday yet. I'm still hanging out in May, still reveling in being like one number younger. All right, so maybe I want to go up more blue, so I'm going to take a couple of brushfuls of this, and I'm going to actually use more Moonstone Blue to build my highlight. But yes, convention this weekend in the Bay Area, San Francisco Bay Area. It is KublaCon, which is our local convention. But there are a lot of good painters in this area, and so it's usually a pretty good, like the competition usually has some very high quality work in it, which is nice. I'm going to be helping judge this year, so that's super fun. I'm going to do one more drop of Moonstone. But you can see how hard it is, even with just the carbon gray, much less pure black, to push this lighter. I may need to actually add a drop of pure white. And as it is, this is very thick. I haven't even thinned it yet. We're going to see if this may not even be light enough. But we'll find out. Hey, Kariniko. All right, I'm going to do one more level because this may not be enough. This time I'm going to take just one drop. Put in 2 drops of Moonstone and 1 of pure white. So I'm building a lot of different transitions here, and that is because if you recall, if you have your colors closer together, you don't have to thin them as much and to still get a decent blend. So that is kind of what I'm working off here, except for obviously the dark there, which is pretty darn dark. So that's a nice bluish silver highlight. That's good. And from there, I would probably go up to pure white. I don't know. I mean, do you feel culty today, Crowley? Oh, cool, Dappy. So, Kariko, I have a question for you. And that is about actually your other hobby, which is knitting. And my question for you is there a really good book for beginners, or would you say that, like, is it all YouTube and there are no good books, or my niece wants to learn. She's an older niece, so she's not a kid, arguably. So I figured you were the expert, Korniko. So if you knew of a great book, because that's giftable, that would be pretty cool. Her graduation is coming up, so I'm asking you for gift references. Oh, the name may get you banned. Oh no. Can you just spell it out with spaces? Or put a bleep in it. I think from context, maybe we can figure it out. Or maybe you should just PM me. Quinny's like, a knitting book that would get you banned? Okay, now we need to know what it is. Oh! Okay, that's awesome. Perfect. Okay, I'm writing that down instantly. And it's good for, like, absolute beginners? Because this is an absolute beginner. Like, never touched it. And I bet beginners, like, totally do bleep a lot. Oh, jeez. Hey, and that's actually a good thing to ask you maybe then. Kerniko, is between knitting and crochet, which would you say is the better one for, like, this person, my niece, like me, has a very artistic bent, and she's very perfectionistic, and she, like, works hard. So, like, would you say crocheting is a better fit, or would you say knitting is a better fit? She'd probably be more interested in something that was a higher ceiling that she could do more interesting stuff with. And I don't know. I'm, like, you know, totally not in the hobby. However, those are awesome names. So I will totally look up those books. You prefer knitting? What do you like about knitting? Tell us. It seems like a very detail-oriented hobby, and I'm sure other people in the chat might be interested too. All right, so I'm going to touch up some of these areas that I didn't quite get. I was using a larger brush for my base coating, and so I'm going to go back in with my detail brush here and just touch up a couple areas. If I touch them up now, I don't have to touch them up later, so you use both hands. Yeah, I find there's a lot of awesome videos on, you know, the interwebs. And I find that seeing it done in video is very helpful. But I also enjoy book learning more. So, and books are giftable, whereas videos are not. And you like using both hands for it. Got it. Alrighty, I see a spot I missed that I just want to darken in the bottom of the cape here. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of my carbon gray and fill that in. It just needs to be a shadow. It doesn't matter what color it is. There we go. Okay, got it. Thanks, Carmichael. I asked for recommendations from Kerniko, who is our knitting expert, about knitting books. Return up. Alrighty. Just touching up little bits. The more I touch up now, the less I have to worry about going back later, so. Alright, I think we're good, though. Oh, yeah, I'm going to make sure I've got those little triangles at the back of the neck a little bit more. Oh, if you know of another really, really good, but very beginner-focused book. Oh, you think Inara is a better call? I can ask her too. You're just the one who puts awesome little knitted accessories on your cats, so I totally had to ask you. Plus, you do get that problem. Not that I think I'll get this from Inara, because I think she's pretty aware, pretty self-aware, but you do get the problem when you ask an expert for a book recommendation. And that, it can be a thing. Some people really are still in touch with like their inner beginner, and some people aren't. But so sometimes it's better to ask like a beginner or an intermediate person if you're looking for a starter product, because they're going to answer you from that perspective, whereas an advanced person may have an idea of, oh my god, this is an amazing book, but maybe it's not the best for beginners, right? So I love them. Obviously they're basic because you can just, you just toss them off. It seems like you knit them very quickly. But they're adorbs. Oh, that's awesome, Allison. That's fantastic. Yeah, there was a guy at my writing club, on Sunday who just came. He was a partner of one of the people who was in the Write Club, and he just came for moral support. And he hung out and knitted all of the time. He was working on something pretty complicated. It looked like some sort of sweater. Very small stitches, finer yarn. There we go. So I just wanted to line a little bit around those also to bring them out, because the mold didn't do them any favors. They lost a little bit of their sharpness in the mold, it looks like. So there we go. Ah, okay. If you had to learn only one, I'd pick crochet. I looked at Tunisian crochet too. That seemed interesting. There were many beers involved. The question is, does beer make you a better knitter? Like, that's really the question, right? And I've got my card. I'll remember to get that, though. All right. So I could do what I would normally do is I would go in and I would line... I probably will line the smaller parts here. You can choose whether to line or not at this point. But I think this time I'm going to do it different. I'm going to do it a little bit different. Yeah, see, well, there is yarn on the cat's shield, so we still are on topic. Start with dishcloths. Oh yeah, totally. Just like with miniatures, finishing things quickly can give you a big boost if you're kind of feeling a little bit down on the hobby, or you're not sure about it. Absolutely. Sorry, I wanted to get a little bit more in focus up closer. Now I do need my white. I'm going to start working with light colors first this time. Oh no, and I just threw a big piece of dried paint into my not so dry paint. No, there we go. Boof. Lots of knitters in the chat, huh? Cool. Do you find it's the same kind of concentration that you use when you're painting? Like, because you're working on such fine detail and you have to, like, pay attention and, you know, be precise? Do knitting and mini painting go together? I got my niece started on mini painting back a while ago. She, what she does now, her thing that she does is, she loves high-end sneakers, and there's a fashion, with younger people nowadays of getting hand-painted ones, modded ones, with art on them. So she actually does, like, painted sneakers for kind of a side gig. Be warned about buying yarn. Yeah, I could see that. But the problem with yarn is that, like, I'd want the multicolored yarn because, like, when I look at a skein of yarn, skein is the right word, right? And it's all just one color, and I just think about staring at that color for, like, the length of an item. I just think about, no. I'd be so bored. Maybe I wouldn't be. Maybe I wouldn't be. I don't think she, hold on, gotta touch that up. All right. I think we're good. I think we're good. The kitty has gloves on here and here, so I think our gloves are going to be some sort of leather color. It depends on how the metal turns out, how light or dark the metal is. But yes. All right, so I'm going to do blocking and highlights totally first. And this is kind of a technique of teaching basic NMM painting that I'm experimenting with right now. So you guys are my guinea pigs. Nice, I said. Yeah, it's kind of like when I'm painting, I can listen to a like a podcast or a nonfiction book and actually still absorb it. Yep. I do that when I'm mini painting. Like, I listen to either music or nonfiction audiobooks, or sometimes I'll listen to my Overwatch games if I've missed some, but I'm not interested enough to watch them and pay close attention. That was a total non sequitur there, Returnip. I have joined Proctor on the Crow's Nest. Why, does he knit now? I did do, actually, and if you want the other version of the Anne origin story, other than the one I posted up on my Patreon and that will go up on YouTube, I was on Crow's Nest with Proctor a while ago. Let's get a shadow under that. Oh, guinea pigs. Right, guinea pigs, guys, not actual pigs. All right. This is alien to me. I keep wanting to shade everything because usually I start with the shadows. But it occurred to me that it may be more difficult for people who are just approaching NMM to think that way, to start with the shadow. And it might be easier for you if instead we looked at where would light fall first. So that's the way we're going to do it. Mini pigs. No, guinea pigs. Guinea pigs is, experimental subjects. You're all experimental subjects today. So let's look at this model under the light. You can see there's definitely a shadow area here. You can see this is mostly in the light here. I'm turning it so that my ring light is hitting it. And I think that's pretty much, I think, the top of the head. So let's just feel our way through this. There is a little bit, when I turn it, there is a little bit of a shadow right here, see? It's okay, Azed. It seems to me like something you could always go back to, just like mini painting. Sometimes we fall out of our hobbies for a while, but then when we need them, they come back to us. All right, so I'm going to take my first highlight color and kind of test it and see how much lighter it really is. And yeah, you can see it. This is probably, if you're looking not to be too heavy into blending, this is probably a good comparison as far as how light or dark you want that first highlight to be. I'm going to put a little line at the top of that. So This is still pretty thick paint, but it's blending in really well, but it is different enough that I can see the difference in color just slightly. So if you're not good at blending, keep your paint colors closer together and do them, like just keep it thicker and put your highlights down where you put them. And you'll get close to just a blend just with that. Okay, so I'm going to paint everything that is facing the light. I'm going to paint this lighter color. And I'm going to kind of turn the model and see, because sometimes like the back of the arm here, this is turned away, I think, from the light, and this is more on top of the light. So taking this first color, I'm not even paying attention to any of the cracks. This is why I made myself ignore lining for the first bit. Oh, I did miss a little spot, however. I'm going to correct that. So anything that seems like it would be in the light. So this whole section here, but then when it cuts off, it goes more toward the shadow. So I'm only going to be hitting the edge of this. So, and toward the light is like turned upwards. So if we look at this model, you can plainly see that this front part, this top part of the arm is turned toward the light. And then when you can see it kind of curves away, you can see where you're getting a bit more shadow. So just kind of look at it that way, and, you know, make your best call and don't like be too overthinking. Just kind of like get close. And when you're doing a surface like this, be consistent down the line of it. So like if all of this is highlighted, then all of this should be highlighted. Like it should go in one continuous tube because this arm is a cylinder. And if you screw it up and if you go too far, it's not a big deal. You can always go back and correct it, so don't worry too much about it. That's why at this early stage, you don't really want to care. Here's Anna Crow's Nest. Yay! Not knitting on the bus, not a good experience. Corelli, you just like to troll the Quindy. Man, you are fearless. All right, so that doesn't show up all that well, though. Do I really want to go higher, though? That's the question. Like, I don't necessarily want to go higher than this. Let's do it, though. Let's just do it. So I'm going to take my even higher highlight, and that is this one off from Pure White. And I'm going to put it down the middle of what I just did. So this is where I imagine the light is really hitting the top of the arm, is this stripe of light that I'm putting in right now. I see a mold line. I'm very annoyed because I hit that mold line, and of course it wasn't enough. I didn't hit it hard enough, folks. So if I'm going to mess with that, I probably should mess with it soon. Because it really is annoying me. So I'm going to fix that. 1 second. Where are my files? Time to get out the mini files. Which is both files for minis and miniature files. And I think I want my angle, my square one. Let this dry. I'm gonna have to take the paint off and put it back on. This is what I get for not double checking my mold lines. But now they're bugging me, so. I think we're good. That was the main annoyance right there. Let's touch up. Where is my little primer? Because it's metal, we will use just a tiny bit of primer. My mom loves quilts, but she doesn't do them. She says too time intensive. She used to own a loom too. My mom is definitely like on the crafty side. Especially now since my parents are retired. She just pretty much does art stuff. She does a whole bunch of different things. So I'm going to get my brush wet and put just a little bit of water into this primer, which I really just put a little drop of on the top of the bottle because I don't need very much. And I'm going to just touch this up. I want to thin it because primer is pretty thick. Our brush on primer is anyway. And we don't want it to, we don't want it to make a globby surface or anything. We don't want to be able to see the lines, so we thin it, and then I'll even take my brush and kind of feather the edge out really thin so it doesn't make a glob. There we go. So now we have to let that sit. So let's do the leg. Gonna start with my medium light highlight here. And here the light's going to be going down primarily the front of the leg. Now you can see there's a shadow on the inside of the leg, right? So that means the light is primarily going down the front and side. And whereas over here, opposite, because the leg is turned out over here, so this side is going to get the light and more shadow is on the other side, especially because it's under the shield. See how that has shadow? So really you're just looking at the model and you're painting a lighter color just in a big band over the parts of the model that you can see are getting the most light. And I'll even do this over these little squares and up here. But on a cylinder, your highlight's going to be linear like this. Now, I'm not going all the way out to the edge necessarily. I'm still going to be putting in shadows, but I want to get the general feel. And usually when you've got a sharp angle on the armor, up here it's more rounded, but down here it does get some angles to it. When you've got that sharp angle, that's where you're going to cut off and get your shadow line. Like you can see that sharp line right here where it goes from a fairly light to a very dark. So this first highlight is pretty subtle. And that's okay. It's a transition highlight up to our next highlight, which is not so subtle. Now, likewise, this breastplate is angled. And when I look at it in my light, you can see that the light is mostly on one side, with a little bit of the top getting a highlight on the other side. And then the bottom part that sticks out does get a little bit of light, where again, we're going to paint exactly what we see. Make sure I get all that chainmail. Okay, so that's our setup, and you can see the difference in color right there. So there is a slight difference to guide you after this. Now here, up on the top of the head is a little more difficult. As you can see, when stuff drops down vertically and isn't sticking out slightly like the arm is, it gets darker. So you don't really put the highlight on there. What we'll do is we will come back in and just touch a little bit of highlight at the end of each of these scales at the tip. And that'll be more of a stylistic choice than a realistic choice. Top of the head, though, definitely gets a highlight. The top of the ears are also going to get a highlight. Here on the head, the above the eyes is going to get a highlight. But then you can see on this side too, the minute that the armor drops down the side of the face, it gets darker, right? So you don't want as much. And you maybe have a little edge here that's picking up the light. And you can see where the tips of these little triangles are picking up the light. So we can hit those. And again, if I go over here, I can kind of see the same thing, that the tips of these are getting a little bit of a highlight. So I can do that and bring them out that way. This one is sticking out more over the shoulder, so it gets more of a highlight. Back of the head, we definitely have a drop-off point. So when you've got a curved surface, a rounded surface, your highlight is going to be rounded too. So you don't want to cut off in a straight line here. Instead, you want to make kind of a circular shape in your highlight back here. So make kind of an arch, as if the whole helmet is getting a roundish highlight going all the way around it. The back of the ears are definitely in shadow, by the way, if you look at them. Because they're falling straight down the back of the head, whereas the top of the ears here are getting a nice highlight. This makes it a bit easier for us because it's easy to know where our shadow line goes then. Then we've got that. Okay, we've got all this. Got the highlight down here. Probably get a little bit of a highlight down here, actually. Though I need to touch up my base coat down here on the paw first. But because this is coming out from underneath the cape, I am seeing some light hit it. I haven't decided on the color of the shield yet, by the way. We'll have to figure that out. Oh yeah, that brings up a thing. I'm probably, for the next month or so, I just finished this, my choosing colors handout for my class, and it's like 10 pages of insanity. So I'm probably going to give it to you guys as a Patreon extra or a Patreon level, because I put so much time into it. It's for my choosing colors class this weekend, but it's actually I think it's an even better. It contains some of the material from my previous choosing colors PDF, but I really put my brain into trying to figure out, like, if I were a rank beginner who never thought about color, like, how would I teach this? So for mini painting, that's definitely the case, no Menzik. But yeah, so I reimagined it. I put it in slightly different order. I tried to, like, add to it and make it more comprehensive. So I think I'm going to probably I might just give you guys, at the $10 level, I might just give you guys both of my handouts for this con as the $10 level. I need to finish the other one. Hopefully we'll get close today. All right, so now I'm coming back in here with my, over my primer with my lighter color. All right, and then a highlight on top of that once that's settled. Above front for the most part, just slightly front though. Mostly it's top down daffodwear. I'm not trying to do an angled light, a real like I'm doing Sergio on this one. Like, you're getting light from both the front and the back, and that's just why I'm doing a highlight here on the helmet. So essentially diffused overheads, traditional, which is much easier. If you're doing NMM, I'm doing a coaching for somebody right now on the Patreon who wants help with NMM, and one of the models, at least, it was like they wanted to really angle the light source, and I'm like, you don't want to maybe. Oh no, Kuruniko. But yeah, I'm definitely doing a traditional light sourcing on this one. Whenever you're doing a beginning, like, NMM, where you're trying to make it very simple, keep it as simple as possible. I find that sticking to the diffused overhead general light source, where the light is kind of hitting the model gently from above in most directions, is the way to go. Plus, it's easy to simulate that just from looking at your lighting. In my case, I'm holding it angled because my big light is up in this direction, up there. So that gives me the most realistic assessment of the light on the figure. So now I'm going to come in with my higher highlight, my almost white highlight. And I'm going to bring this back in now that I've fixed that mold line, that pesky mold line. And I haven't done lining yet, and that will help. All right, so brought in this higher light here. So your highest light, your this one, not the pure white, but the close, should really be a little bit shorter or more focused than your previous one. Remember, this is only dealing with the surface that light is directly falling on. So right now, we're only painting highlights. We haven't put in any shadows at all. So right now, it looks more like stone armor than anything. It doesn't look shiny yet. This is like on kind of on purpose to show you guys that it doesn't look shiny until you've got two things. One, dark shadows, and two, pure white highlight. But even if I go up to pure white on this armor, it won't look shiny until I bring those shadows in. Gloom, I just did a PDF for my Patreon that featured a Rocky painted kind of partially in an albino color scheme. But otherwise, we've only done one Rocky dragon, and we didn't finish him. I think it was the Treasure Rocky. I don't always finish models. I do more nowadays because I'm more careful what I pick. But back when we started the show, we didn't always paint models to completion. But now we mostly do, but every once in a while I just won't. Depends. They are really cute though. I think I do have one left that I haven't decided if it's going to be on the show. Yeah, Rhonda painted the gallery ones, but I think. But I don't know that she did them on stream, Twisted Oma. If that's what you're looking for, Gloom, if you're looking for a step-by-step on the Rockies. But yeah, if you have questions about painting the Rockies, then Rhonda did paint the studio paint jobs, so she would be a good one to ask. And her stream, as mentioned, is on Mondays, so it was yesterday. But it will be on Monday again. All right, so now I have to really think about what I want to do here. I think it's time for shadows. I don't know that I'm going to bring in my pure white highlight. I guess I can on a couple places just to show you guys that it does not make it look shiny. No shinies. No shinies, even with the pure white highlight. So I can create that pure white highlight. I can have it on the edges, and I can have it up above. And I can have it like kind of going down the arm. And it makes it look a little shinier, see? But it doesn't really. And the reason is you have to really have to put in shadows to get the shiny look. So as I work these highlights down the arm, I do want to keep them in line with each other as far as being kind of in the same. These two pieces, this as opposed to this, the angle does change. And so I am working with that in mind. So there's a slightly different line, but still. Whenever you have a cylindrical object, be it an arm or a leg or anything else in a cylinder shape, you need to work in that with that line of white coming down. Yeah, Reaper Challenge League is definitely seems like it would be a good Rocky venue. And it's also a fun way to motivate yourself to paint more. So a little touch of light there, even though technically it's turning away from the light. That's just my own, like, that's a stylistic choice there because I want that detail to come out. We'll get some bounce light too, but right now we're dealing with just the top level highlights. So shrinking our highlights as we go up and keeping it now that the pure white highlight really has to be on the top of things where the light is going to be strongest. So let's just do this arm. All right. So now I need to do shadows. Well, let me pick up these little guys. I didn't actually get these little scales going on. These guys, usually with scales, it's the tips that are overlaying the armor that are going to kind of pick up light, because anything up here is going to be overshadowed by the other plates. So usually with this sort of thing, you can hit each one. If you're working on a big cape that's all done like this, like on the Fire Giant Queen, then I would do what I did up here and just do big highlights and shadows over everything, then pay more attention to individual scales. Yeah, Reaper Challenge League is really cool. Yeah, Reaper's got a good Discord, so I'm a fan if you are looking for like motivation or a gang to paint with online, or just people to connect with about painting. The Reaper Discord is, you know, open to everybody, and it's we have a great fan base with very nice people, as you can see from my chat. All right, I'll do that and the breastplate actually. So here I got to look at my highlights. Now the breastplate here is a little bit interesting because it is slightly rounded, being a breastplate. It's not just straight, and it's got that angle down the front. Now usually on a rounded breastplate, your highlight's going to be rounded. And you can see a little bit coming through over here. You can kind of see, actually, I haven't painted it like this, but you can see where the light is falling. So I think I'm going to do a combo. I'm going to kind of do a rounded highlight here, brighter on the side where the light actually is, and a little bit dimmer over here. And then I'm going to bring that white highlight down the center of the breastplate. Alrighty, so let's get that in. Oh, I missed a spot. Whenever I miss a spot, I'm going to come back and just touch it up. So you can see over here the start of the NMM, right? We don't have any shadows yet. So the only shadow we have is our original base coat color. But you can see how it's starting to look like it might be shiny someday. It's just not quite there yet. Yeah, I mean, it'll be fun, Mini Monster. It's a lot of work for me. I don't know how much longer I'm going to be teaching in person at cons. It's kind of stressful. But I'm looking forward to seeing everybody and to teaching my classes this year, so we'll see. I may change my mind on that. It's just the handouts. It's getting the handouts together that's always so stressful to me, especially on top of the on top of all the rest of the stuff that I do for Patreon and stuff. Just keep working at it. I mean, I've been painting for a long time, but I got very good in a very short period of time, Glum. I just pretty much committed myself to learning with every figure and getting better with every figure instead of just painting like I had been. So I started really striving to learn new techniques and to try to improve things like my layering and getting better blending and things like that, and getting, you know, more control, more precision, hitting the details, the little details on models. All those things I practiced, and I went from being like a decent like painter to a like competition winning painter in probably about 6 months, because I put a lot of time into it. So you can get good fast if you put the time in, or you can just relax and kick back and go slower at your own pace, and you'll get there. But if you want to paint better, then definitely like concentrate on getting better at the core techniques and working your way through all the different techniques. Always try to be a little bit like every mini. What I did is I chose one thing on every model I painted to push hard on. to try to get much better on. So like with one model, if I really like the face, I would be like, I'm going to spend extra time painting this face to the best that I can. And on another model, if I really liked the cape, it would be like, okay, I am going to spend extra time to work on my blending on this cape. And in that way, I didn't have to commit to spending 10 hours on a model to paint the whole thing to that level, but I would still get better slowly on every model I did. So that is one way you can do it. It worked for me. It won't work for everybody, but it probably will work for the majority of people. It's a very methodical way to go about it. All right, so let's get this lighter color on the breastplate now. I'm going to do kind of a, oh, did I forget my other highlight? I think I did. Oh, well, we're just going to do this. So slightly rounded. So I'm going to keep it up here, and then I'm going to bring it down more as it goes toward the center. And I'm going to bring a little bit on the top of the opposite side as well. Just a little. But I'm going to bring it down more here. And then I want to bring down this line right down the middle. So just like on a sword, when you're painting a sword with a blade that's got a bevel in it, you run a white line, though this is a near white. This is our second highlight. It's not really pure white yet, but I'm starting. Run that line down the middle. And I'm going to put a little bit of a highlight down here at the bottom, which we'll talk about in a minute why I do that. It's reflected light, but we're not there yet. And then here, just like this has light, you go straight down, this would get light. And then we have cutoff, but again, we'd have a little bit of light on the other side, just like we have a little bit of light up top on the other side. So then we got that. And now it's looking more, you see it's looking more shiny, but it's not really shiny yet. Again, that's because we don't have shadows. This is the biggest mistake that people make with non-metallic metal, is the shadows are not strong enough. They aren't usually like doubling down on it as hard as I am right now. I'll put a little extra highlight over there. I may put one up the middle. We'll talk about why I'm doing this too. Why I'm doing kind of like stripes. We'll work on it. I may not keep that stripe. I might. But I am putting up a highlight around the upper edge. These little highlights that are opposite my main highlight are bounced light, and we'll talk about that. It's a secondary highlight that's caused by light reflecting. So, okay, so the breastplate and the arm are kind of in a so if it's a green, mostly green dragon, then I would say orange or red or purple, depending. But if you have your green scale shifting to purple, then don't use purple. Stephen Mack, that was for you. Sometimes the obvious answer is the best answer. Green being the complementary color of red. So a little bit up here also. A little bit of highlight coming down there. All right. Okay, now let's line. Let's put in some lining, which is the very basic shadow in the world, right? We've got lining between the fur and the helmet already. So let's put some lining in where this area where we've done all these highlights and see the difference that it makes. So I'm going to use my carbon gray, which is not like a super black. I'm going to start down here. And lining is just putting a thin line wherever two different pieces come together. Now, you could decide not to line here and here, because these little parts are part of the same breastplate, you could just decide not to line those. But in reality, because we're doing NMM, where you hit this like bevel, this indentation, you would get a darker shadow. So I'm going to thin my liner just a little bit, thin my carbon gray just a little bit, but I'm still going to line it with it. Just not going to make it quite as dark to start with. There. Lining is the most efficient, simple form of shading. Simplified, stylized, and it's great for brush control. If you find that you don't have a lot of luck in hitting fine details, doing some lining every day or, you know, every time you paint will help to build your brush control. So that's crisping up our forms here, making the outlines stand out a little bit better. See how the plates all stand out nicer now. That's going to happen up here on the arm too, and it's going to look great because we've got all those little details up there. Hello, Dogfather. You're not that late. Adjust my posture here. All right. Let's get the shoulder up here. Now, as we do this, we are introducing some contrast, and we're going to see our highlights a little bit better. Just take your time with lining. The biggest thing you can do for yourself is to just relax and don't try to rush it. And don't tense up on your brush. That's another thing that people do when they're starting out is they get really tense and like, you know, think this is high stakes or something. No, it's low stakes. It's just a miniature. No need to freak out. So we've got the shoulder coming in there. We're just doing little brush strokes. I'm going to move the model around to get better angles instead of moving my brush. Notice my brush stays in the same place, doing the same brush stroke, but I move the model. I've got all those nice little plates coming out. See all nice details are coming out. And see how nice... oh, everything has to be NMM. If one thing is NMM Pendrake, everything on the model has to be NMM. I just haven't done it. I'm trying to break it down on each of these surfaces really simply for everybody, so I'm just doing a little bit of areas at a time. I haven't base coated the sword yet. Yeah, you could try to wear gloves. I mean, I know that mixing green stuff with gloves is kind of a pain in the butt, but you could try gloves. Cranico. I don't know, though, if you have a green stuff allergy, if you have, like, the plastic latex or not latex gloves allergy, too. Yeah, remember that the choice you make, either non-metallic metal or metallics, is something that's got to stick through the whole model. Mixing them does not work. Mixing them will essentially make your NMM look wrong. And the reason for that isn't just some silly namby-pamby art, reason. It's actually visual science reason. And the reason is simply that NMM is an illusion. It's something that you're carefully constructing to give a certain effect. But the minute you put something that is actually shiny or actually reflective, like metallic paint, on the model, that gives your viewer and their brain a frame of reference as to what it really is shiny. So the illusion that you have constructed with NMM is immediately shattered because it is exposed as not actually a shiny object. That's why you need to always do just NMM or just metallics. When you're trying to fool the eye, it's very hard to do so when you've got something that's actually the thing still in frame. Well, I mean, they're all epoxies, right? So they all probably have a certain chemical compound. They're all two-part that you mix to cure, even though... Have you tried Milliput? Milliput's a little different, isn't it? Or is it still a mixable epoxy? Having not used it or been exposed to it for years. But yeah, I can see why you would react to everything, because they're all very similar chemically, I imagine, Cornico. A two-part epoxy is a two-part epoxy is a two-part epoxy. Lining the fingers just because I'm back here. May as well. But yeah, does anybody know? Has anybody worked with Milliput? Do you know if it's a two-part or if it's a different one-part cure? It's two-part? Okay. Yeah, if it's any two-part epoxy, then, Cornico, it's not surprising that you react to it, because it's all going to be a two-part that produces a thermodynamic reaction when it's curing, and that means that it's just going to be that way. Like, they're all probably chemically, fundamentally very similar. So it actually does make sense that if you react to one, you would react to all. Yeah, if it cures, it messes up your skin. Yep. Yeah, Sculpey. Yeah, Sculpey's still heat reactive, right? It just doesn't... It's just a one part, and it takes heat added to make it cure. So it's still a similar animal, but not quite as similar. So that makes sense, too. So then the things that might work for you, I don't know if they can be used this way, but the pastes, have you worked with, if you're trying to gap fill, it wouldn't work for sculpting, but for like gap filling, you might be able to just put one of these on and smooth it down with a tool or a finger, or just let it set a little bit and get it with water. I think these are more like just a paste, and maybe you could get away with those, at least for gap filling and minor sculpting, Cornico. They're not as good as putties for sculpting, obviously. They're goopy, but for some applications, like basing, or join smoothing. I bet you could use them. If you let them set just a little bit, you can actually bring in water and smooth them down and sculpt with them. Yeah, okay, you use a tool. There you go. Yeah, good. That probably may have been a little bit hard. So that actually is a bevel. So I probably shouldn't have gone in that hard with it. So I'm going to actually grab some of my base coat and thin it down just a tad and bring it over the top of that. So that I have a slight shadow, but not a heavy shadow. That's better. And now I do need to get the interior, make sure I've got the interior of that cuff. I have not heard great reviews of liquid green stuff. I would think maybe the Liquitex modeling pastes might be similar and maybe... There we go. So I want to get the inside of this cuff pretty solidly. There. Interesting. Hello, Wise Carrot. I like your name. What makes you so wise? Is it the vitamin A? I'm gonna just trim that back a little bit here. All right. So now we've got our lining in on our plates of our breastplate and our arm. So now we've got a little bit more contrast. We can still see the light going down, but we've got some barriers, you know, our shadows of our plates overlapping. And we could have gone a little more subtle with those shadows. But then we, on 28 millimeter, if you don't go fairly dark with your lining, you lose a lot. So you lose a lot of detail. So that's why we went a little bit dark. Thanks. Yeah, Kitty's coming along pretty well there, Wise Carrot. Where I was just tackling some NMM. So we just did our lining. Now we need to add proper shadows on our metal because we're still not looking shiny. Not really. So I'm going to start with kind of a middle. I'm going to take one brush full of my base coat and one brush full of my carbon gray and build a mid-dark shadow like this. We're going to start with that. And then we're going to go straight to the carbon gray. So we want to thin this down. Maybe you've just acclimated, Julie. Like maybe it's because you've used green stuff for so many years that you don't like have a reaction to it. Because you know how you acclimate to your own cats? You know, or your own animals. Like I have animal allergies, but I acclimated to my own animals, and only when I went over to like Brian and Shannon's place with their dogs and their cats would I'd have to take an allergy pill before I went. Yeah, Kitty, it's hard to do a likeness, I think. It depends. You've only got a couple of areas on the model where you can really show patterns. I did a Catfolk Rogue 2 Wise Carrot a while ago that that model had more fur showing, so I could actually show more markings. But the helmet makes it hard to like show like markings on the kitty. That you got the tail, of course, so you can do that. So it depends on how many markings your kitty has. All right, I'm going to take this dark and I'm going to start working it in. I'm going to take just a little bit of it on my brush. And your dark shadow should go underneath your highest highlight. So let's block it in right about here. We're going to start there. We're going to get closer because we can. But yeah, Reaper has a lot of really good Catfolk. Carrot. So look at a bunch. Like just do a search for Catfolk in the Reaper store. There's a lot of cool ones. I think I've got the mage too. I ordered a bunch of them because I really like the models. So we're gonna work this in. So usually I do the shadows first, but this time I thought I would do them after all the highlights were set up and see how that worked. I'm going to make a little bit of an overhanging shadow too on these plates. And once again, you want your shadow to come down and be in line, just like your highlights are in line. All the Catfolk. Yay, they're Quindy. Quindy's got the search. Wow. Yeah, interesting, green users. Well, it's a good thing you don't react to it, considering all the green you've had to like work with over the years. I don't react to it either. I just hate that it gets all the sticky goo feeling on my fingers, but I deal. Oh, Julie, I should show you. Wait. I might have to go show something since I have Bob and Julie in the chat. Julie, I've been doing a bunch of green work on my werewolf that I've been working on. Hold on. I'm going to go get it. Here, you guys, hold this kitty. Hold this kitty. Have to show Julie my wolfie, and then we'll go back to the kitty cat. Yes, hold the kitty, don't let it escape. So here you go, Julie. This is what I've been doing. So I've got almost all of his mane done now. I really like this side. And we're working on it. So the only thing I need to do is I just need a little bit of a filler of some shorter strands, like filling in this area right here, just to get that, bridge that gap, that gap right there. Because it's just a little bit. I just need a little bit more mass. So yeah, so I went, and this is what I've been doing on my Saturday streams, is converting the Wolfie, because he started out with a really cartoony face, and I wanted to broaden it and change it and make it more canine and less humanoid. And then we also resculpted the triceps and the elbow, because I wanted the arm not to be hyperextended and to bend a little forward, so I have to still put details on the elbow, and I need to smooth. I've got some tool marks in here, like those sharp ones. I need to just put a thin skin over it, but I'm very happy with the shape of the triceps. So yeah, so this is what I do on Saturdays, guys, on Twitch when I stream. I've been working on Wolfie. And yeah, he's very fierce now. I like him. Very fierce. So he's almost set. I had to show the green experts because, you know. So, and he's big. He's very big. He says, look at how big I am next to Kitty. Yeah. I don't know if you know the original sculpt, but it's very confrontation, very Rackham, Julie, and Bob. That's very cartoon. But yeah, I think he's cool. I've still got to correct. There's still parts I have to like finish on the top of the head, and I have to do some thin skin work to where I left tool marks. But other than that, pretty happy with him, actually. Cthulhu will be yours. Yeah, you know, Julie, when I'm on and when you're on and I've been doing green stuff, I have to show off. I have to say, look, I've been getting better. All right, so let's get more shadows in here. So we've got a bit of shadow started here. Let's bring in some shadows underneath each of these little and the reason that I normally start with the shadow and work up, I think, is because that's where it makes sense to me to be building up highlights as the final stage. It's probably a holdover of just like the days of, you know, base coat, wash, and highlight, where highlight is the last step. So I don't want to go too high on the darks on this side of the model. I do want to go pretty dark on the other side, because this side of the model is still in the light. And so even if I get some of this dark shadow in, I'm probably going to knock it back just a little. And I blorfed a bit there. A bit of blorf. Oh, yeah. Yeah, Saturdays are usually, like, I sacrificed part of my Saturday to do the stream just because I liked it better on the Saturday than trying to cram it into a weekday. Because I already do so much of this stream on weekdays, and I found that doing, like, 3 hours of streaming on a weekday was just exhausting. So that's why I switched it to Saturdays. Gonna bring back my light here because I blurfed it a little. Bean Mitch. Oh, wow. Uh-oh, gotta sing. Sing time. Double sub-anniversary, double sub-anniversary, double sub-anniversary, happy double sub-anniversary to Bean Mitch for 24 months. Everybody give him a round of applause. Oh yeah, I think there's a Shub-Niggurath and there's a couple, because Kevin is our staff sculptor, our main staff sculptor, senior staff sculptor Babel, and Kevin loves Cthulhu. So there's definitely Cthulian stuff. All right, let's bring in some shadow here on the front. So I want a dark shadow in here. And another dark shadow in here. Just a little bit. Because remember, this is mostly a highlighted part, so I want to be careful. I do want to bring in definitely a dark shadow right up against that, though. So as we bring in these shadows, we start looking a little shinier. Now we got to get on the back here and really bring down a hard shadow here. All on the other side. So now we've got that shadow backing up that, and we still need our under reflection, our back reflection over here. We still need to darken this shadow a little more too. We're starting with not as dark of a shadow as I would normally go for, because we are trying to get somewhat of a blend. So trying to blend straight from white to black just isn't going to work. So we did kind of a mid first. But you can see the difference. Like now, look how flat everything else looks. Let's bring up our light a little bit more. Hello, Panther the cat. Hey, my old cat's name was Panther. He has passed, but he was my last cat. We're working on it. But thank you, Panther. We work on a bunch of different shows. I haven't seen you before. We work on a bunch of different models on this show. We're also working on the Centaur, which we've been doing mostly the horse parts up to now. We started mocking in the armor on him. And we've been working on... Our next model for tomorrow is we're back to Madame Delia, where we've just been starting to highlight up some areas like the red. I was working on it last time. So she's coming along really well. And then we are still working on, for people just like to see, I'm working on the bust from ReaperCon last year. So we do a different model every day. And our current lineup is all here. This is our last, our sorceress. We're working on her too. I just started working on some freehand symbols for her. We're going to continue on that. And then we just finished a model, which is Bunny. We just finished Bunny. So we generally work on a 6 model rotation, so that it's a different model every day, and then we loop around and eventually we finish stuff. So we just finished Bun's basing. So now I have to pick a model to replace her. I haven't done that yet. All right, let's get some of this real carbon grain. Now this is the hard part because bringing in a really dark shadow on silver can be challenging. So let's see here. So I'm going to probably work back and forth with my previous dark and my darker dark. And you probably are going to need to do some glazes here to get this to really blend in. And I'm going to need also to get more of my white. I didn't really bring in the pure white yet. So I'm going to start. Bringing in the pure white. Bringing in that. Going to bring in a little bit more. I'm going to go back and forth until I get these like dark areas to work. The hardest part of Steel NMM is getting everything to blend together. And sometimes I do, like I'm doing right now, I'm doing a little bit of wet blending. Since this breastplate is an unusual shape, I might need to go back and forth a little bit to figure out exactly how should these shadows and reflections be working. Because partially, I think what I need is a shadow right underneath this highlight. So I think I need to actually go and link up these shadows. I wasn't going to necessarily go that dark, but part of me says I have to, so let's try to change this. And the reason I'm doing this is that since I've got this rounded highlight coming in, I really need a rounded shadow under it, and I'm realizing that that was something I forgot to do at the beginning. So now I'm going to try to blend that in. And bring in my pure white highlight in here too. That's going to take some fudging and some blending and some messing around with. So first let's knock that out. And don't be afraid to like redo stuff. Like if you are like, oh no, I should have put that dark shadow in right under that rounded highlight, just like I just did. Just go do it. Who cares if you have to paint over part of it? There we go, that's better. So always remember, look at your main highlight. Here I lost sight of the fact that my main highlight were not vertical. My main highlight is the scallop shaped one up here. So that needs a dark shadow to kind of like bring it out. So I had to bring in that dark shadow right there. Now I can go more linear. I think I did like a long time ago. No, maybe I did it. I thought I did some things on the bone. Like there was a bone pile that Bob and Julie did it. But generally, anything that I do on teeth or horns is also applicable to bone. The reason I don't do a skeletal thing on this show is just because they tend to be, just like dragons, they tend to be somewhat boring after the first session. You're just doing a lot of bone at that point. Let's see here. Now we're getting there. Now we're getting there. There we go. Yep, bone pile. There we go. So Quindy found the bone pile. Good job, Quindy. Dang. Like, I had almost forgotten I even did that. That's how long ago that was. So when you're not happy with your NMM steel, you just kind of keep working at it, guys. Kind of figure out, you know, try to take it a couple different directions. See what direction it decides it really likes. That's looking a little better. I need to block that out a little. I keep trying to bring in, I want to bring in some linear highlights, but I need to like be more delicate about it. So that's what this is telling me right here. Oh, I'm blending. I'm still going to be able to do a linear shadow and highlight over there, so I'm going to do it. I don't think we know if there's going to be a crow's nest. Yeah, bone models, they tend to obviously be very repetitive. So like, skeletons are skeletons. Plus, let's face it, most people aren't looking to do a high quality job on a skeleton. They're looking to do it much faster, you know, than I typically paint on this show. And so, you know, anybody can show you how to do a quick wash on a skeleton with a highlight. So that's kind of the reason I haven't grabbed any skeletal models. Oh, you were told yes, we do have a crow's nest. Quindy, that's funny. All right, let's bring up a little bit of highlight here. Now we don't want too much shadow either. We got to kind of keep in mind we want this armor to be lighter. If I let shadow take over a lot of the surfaces, then it's gonna not look quite right. So I do have to remember keep the shadow in control here. So now I've got kind of the wobbly look that I want. I want an irregular fluctuation between shadows and highlights because I want there to kind of suggest that there's stuff around Kitty in the environment. So that's a more complex technique. Not a simple technique, but it can look pretty cool. Yeah, but I don't know. You know, Pendrake, I try to choose models that really, really get me excited to paint them. And skeletons, I think there's just like one set of skeletons ever in history that I've been really excited to paint, and they weren't Reaper, so. And even now, those models show their age. Just doing a little bit of blending here again. The breastplate is the biggest part, and it's thus the part that's going to give you the most fight. Like, it's going to make you want to tear your hair out a little bit, typically. Because big NMM surfaces are more challenging. Whereas the little stuff is a lot easier, a lot faster. Yeah, they're not my jam. I like vampires. I sometimes like liches. Depends on the lich. Gonna bring in a little shadow here, shadow here, shadow, shadow. So because I'm doing so much blending, because there's this soft blend between the shadow and the highlight, this is a more burnished armor. It's not terribly mirror-like. If I wanted this to be a very, like much shinier mirror-like armor, I would have to make the definition zone between the highlight and the shadow really sharp, which is very difficult to do well. It's called Sky Earth NMM usually at that point, where you're going for a chrome effect. It's very hard to do well, and you have to nail your placement of highlights perfectly. And I didn't really want to do that for this model. I think on a model like this one, it's going to be almost impossible to do because most of the plates are very small. Usually you want to have bigger plates, or it's just going to be really hard. If this was a big model, if this was like on a scale of like a 75 millimeter, then you could maybe get away with it. You could have enough room to convey that effect. But Sky Earth is very tough to do on 28 millimeter unless it's got really big armor plates. Still getting still pretty flat on the arm here. I need to work on it a bit more, but at least that side of the breastplate's looking okay. Thank you, Babel. But this shows you, NMM, doing it well, it takes a while. And it helps if you just kind of chill out and just kind of work on it. And break down every little section. Oh, yeah, you're right. Well, let me just throw a little bit more shadow onto these little guys and hit that edge highlight right here. And that'll help bring everything up. And then we can call it. And tomorrow is, as I mentioned just a moment ago, Madame Delia will continue working on her dress and stuff. Just a reminder, I won't be on Friday and I won't be on Monday, and I will not be doing my own private stream on Saturday because of the con. I'll be teaching during the time that I would normally be streaming. So this whole weekend, I'm going to be without, there will be no Anne on Twitch. No Anne on Twitch unless she's a rerun. I'm going to just put a highlight, a really sharp highlight at the end of these little guys. After putting a little bit more of a shadow there. So that helps bring those out, and then I'm going to get the edge of that armor there. Need to get this edge as well, so that these extra highlights transform the armor in conjunction with the shadows. Ta-da! Now it's starting to look metal. And I still, if I wanted to, I could bring in a little stronger shadow, but this is up on the upper section. So actually, if I'm going to bring up a stronger shadow, I probably need to bring it all up under this edge here, because there's an edge there with a divot. And then a little bit extra dark right at the center of this one. And a T. Because the more contrast you have, the more metallic the surface will look. So that's better. That's starting to look more like NMM. Well, actually, it's all there's two of them, Pendrake. There's also Genghis Khan, and that's in Colorado. And then Kublai Khan is named, what it is because, and their mascot is a little Mongol. I think both of them have Mongol mascots. Which, if you look at the actual history of the Mongols, is pretty terrifying. But yeah, so there is a Kublai Khan and there is Genghis Khan, or a Genghis Khan, as it should be pronounced, I suspect. Yeah. Because it was an easy pun. That's why they named it that. Come on. Nope. I'm going to just look at my collection, Pendrake, and see what jumps out and bites me. But yeah, so that's what we did today, guys. We tackled a different way to start NMM. Yeah, Beguiler, right? Chinggis. Thanks, Returnip. I've heard it pronounced so many different ways, including on historical podcasts, that... Totally not, yeah. But at any rate, that's the name of the convention, and that's where I'm going to be this weekend. So if you are in California, consider coming out for it. If you're in the northern or middle section. And yeah, what we did today is NMM. We'll continue with this throughout the next times that we work on this mini until we have a really, you can see I'm going for a pretty pale silvery steel. And then tomorrow is going to be Madam Delia. And we're going to continue with red. We're probably going to work on some of the black. I'm going to start jumping around now that I'm getting this model more progressed. We did need to put a little bit more, I think. Well, the red's actually looking really good. Yeah, the red is looking pretty good. So yeah, we'll probably go on to the cream tomorrow then. Cream and black. She's getting closer than you'd think. Like, she's coming together pretty fast. So yeah. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for tuning in. Kitty Cat says thanks for following my paint job, and we will see you guys tomorrow. Have a fantastic Tuesday. Oh, and don't forget to come back for Crow's Nest at 5 p.m. USA Central Time. Awesome. Bye, everybody.